You probably do not think much about it, but you talk to yourself sometimes. Not out loud, mostly in your head. You replay conversations. You notice small details other people walk right past. You get lost in thought in the middle of doing something completely normal, like washing dishes or waiting for a light to turn green. And most of the time, you just assume everyone does this, but they do not. These are not random quirks, they are signals, and they say something specific about how your mind actually works. Today, we are looking at 10 unusual habits that tend to show up in people with genuinely high intelligence. Not the kind that gets measured on a single test, but the kind that shows up quietly in how a person thinks, observes, and moves through the world. Some of these will feel familiar. Some of them you have probably never heard framed this way before. But by the end, you will understand why these habits exist and what they are actually doing for you. Habit 1. You talk to yourself, either out loud or in an almost constant internal monologue. Most people treat this like an embarrassing habit, something you do when no one is watching. But psychologists who study self-directed speech have found something interesting. People who narrate their own thinking tend to process information more deeply than people who do not. When you talk yourself through a problem, you are not just thinking it. You are organizing it. You are giving structure to something abstract. Language forces your brain to be precise. It pulls vague feelings into defined thoughts. And for a mind that is constantly generating ideas and making connections, that narration becomes almost necessary, like a way of slowing the processing down enough to actually work with it. It does not look like intelligence from the outside. It looks like someone muttering under their breath in a grocery store. But what is actually happening is a form of real-time self-coaching, and it tends to show up in people whose minds are working faster than their surroundings. Habit 2. You find it genuinely difficult to fall asleep because your mind will not stop. Not because you are anxious exactly, but because the moment the world goes quiet, your brain starts going. You think about something you said 3 weeks ago. You start solving a problem you were not consciously thinking about. You wonder about something you read. And suddenly, it is 1 in the morning, and you have mentally redesigned your entire life. Research on sleep patterns in highly intelligent individuals consistently finds a correlation between high cognitive ability and later sleep schedules, and more importantly, with what is called high cognitive arousal at night. The brain does not simply switch off, it keeps processing. This is not a flaw in your wiring. It is actually evidence of a mind that is still working even when you have told it to stop. The same capacity that makes you good at thinking deeply is the same one that makes it hard to think less. You cannot selectively turn off a powerful engine. Habit 3. You ask yourself why about almost everything. Not just the big questions, the small ones too. Why does that process work the way it does? Why did that person react like that? Why is this thing designed this way when there is clearly a better way to do it? This is called intellectual curiosity, but that phrase undersells what is actually happening. It is not just interest. It is an almost involuntary need to understand the underlying mechanics of things. Highly intelligent people do not tend to accept surface-level explanations. They feel a kind of low-grade discomfort when something does not fully make sense yet, and that discomfort is what drives them to keep pulling at ideas until the logic becomes clear. It is a brain that treats unanswered questions as unfinished business. Habit 4. You frequently second-guess yourself, even when you are probably right. This one surprises people. There is a widespread assumption that intelligence comes with confidence, that smart people just know they are smart. But the actual research suggests something different. People with higher competence tend to be more aware of what they do not know. They can see the gaps in their own reasoning. They understand how complex problems actually are. And that awareness makes them less certain, not more. So when you sit with a decision longer than you think you should, when you keep questioning something you have already figured out, That is not insecurity. That is your brain accurately modeling how much complexity exists in the situation. That hesitation is a form of intellectual honesty. It is what separates genuine thinking from false certainty. Habit 5. You find most small talk exhausting, but you can go hours in the right conversation. It is not that you dislike people. It is that surface level exchange feels like reading the cover of a book and being asked to pretend you have read the whole thing. There is a disconnection between the depth of conversation you are capable of and what is often available in social settings. Highly intelligent people tend to crave conversations that actually go somewhere, that reveal something, that require real thinking. And when those conversations happen, the energy is completely different. Time disappears. You feel more present than you do in most situations. The exhaustion from small talk is not social anxiety. It is cognitive underuse. Your mind is not built to idle for long. And when it is forced to, it starts looking for the nearest exit. And here's where it gets interesting. Every habit we have covered so far has the same thing at its core. They are not separate quirks. They are all expressions of a mind that processes at a different level of depth than average. Habit 6. You prefer to work alone. Not because you are antisocial, but because collaboration often slows you down. Group work for many highly intelligent people is genuinely frustrating. Not because they think they are better than everyone, but because the pace of group decision-making rarely matches the pace of their individual thinking. By the time a group catches up to where your mind already went, you have moved 3 steps further. This can look like impatience. It can look like arrogance. But most of the time, it is just a mismatch in processing speed. Working alone becomes the default, not because connection is not valued, but because it is the only environment where the mind can actually move at its natural pace. Habit 7. You have a very strong sense of when something does not add up, even when you cannot immediately explain why. Call it intuition. Call it pattern recognition. Highly intelligent people tend to have a finely tuned sense for inconsistency. Something feels off about what someone said. A plan sounds good on the surface, but something in the logic bothers you. You cannot always put it into words right away, but you notice it. This is the brain doing what it does best, processing large amounts of information simultaneously and flagging anomalies before the conscious mind has finished working through them. Intelligence is not just about reasoning speed. It is about the quality of pattern detection. Most people learn to dismiss this feeling. Intelligent people learn to trust it. Habit 8. You get genuinely absorbed in things, sometimes to a degree that surprises even you. There is a state psychologists call flow, total immersion in an activity where time distorts and everything else drops away. Highly intelligent people tend to access this state more readily and more deeply than most. When something genuinely engages them, the focus is not forced. It arrives almost automatically. This same capacity is what makes distraction so painful. When something breaks the absorption, a noise, an interruption, a pointless meeting, there is a real cost to re-entering that state. And so intelligent people often become protective of their focus in ways that can look like rigidity. It is not. It is just that they know the value of what they are guarding. Habit 9. You laugh at things other people do not find funny, and sometimes cannot explain why. Humor is one of the least discussed markers of intelligence, and one of the most consistent ones. Research into what makes something funny has found that humor at its core requires the rapid detection of incongruity. You hold an expectation, and then something violates it in a precise and unexpected way. The faster your mind processes that gap, the faster and more often you find things funny. Highly intelligent people tend to have a comedic sensibility that is hard to explain to others, not because it is complicated, but because the connection they made happened too fast to retrace. The joke was in the gap, and if you have to explain the gap, it is gone. Habit 10. You find it easy to see things from multiple perspectives, even perspectives you disagree with. This is one of the quieter signs and one of the most underappreciated. Being able to genuinely inhabit a viewpoint you do not hold, to construct the best version of an argument you disagree with, requires a kind of cognitive flexibility that not everyone has access to. It does not mean you do not have convictions. It means your convictions exist inside a mind that can also model alternative realities clearly. You can understand why someone thinks the way they do, even when you think they are wrong. And that capacity to hold multiple truths in view simultaneously is one of the clearest markers of a genuinely sophisticated mind. None of these habits are loud. None of them announce themselves. That is partly why people who have them do not always recognize what they mean. The restlessness, the depth, the questioning, the quiet frustration when the world moves at a pace that does not match how your mind works. These are not flaws that need fixing. They are the same features that allow for deep thinking, real creativity, and the level of awareness that most people never develop. Once you see the pattern, it stops feeling random. It stops feeling like something is wrong with you. It starts feeling like something is simply different about how you are wired. And that awareness alone changes everything. If this explains something you have felt for a long time, there is more worth understanding about yourself. The patterns go deeper than you think. Subscribe to Psychology Street for more psychology content every week.